Nice. I filmed this before and then realized that my camera wasn't recording. Anyway, hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Eva and today I'm wrapping up a few things I've managed to read during the month of November. I got sick with a cold during November, but I didn't stay home. I kept working, and therefore, you know, when you are sick sometimes you get a lot of reading done when you're off work. But I wasn't off work. I kept working, and by the time I came home at night I was just exhausted and would just go to bed. So my reading, which already has been struggling for the last few months of my life, has got even worse this month. But without further ado, I'm going to share the books I couldn't get hold to, and I am currently reading 3 of the ones that were on my TBR. So I'm reading The Hod King, the 3rd book in the Tower of Babel. I am also reading the Where the Crawdads Sing and The Cabin at the End of the Woods, so those will be wrapped up in December. But the ones I couldn't even get hold to, so I didn't even start, were the 6 Crimson Cranes, the Once We Burn, is a prelude, Sabrel, unfortunately, and another one I'm very sad about is John Dies at the End. Didn't start this one, and The Handmaid's Tale. So yeah, they'll go back to my shelves. I'll get around to reading them eventually. And I do promise a video about why I've been so busy is coming up. It's not like a revolutionary video, it's just a very quick life update and what I'm gonna do in January 2024 moving forward. But as always, I'm gonna go from the least enjoyable read to the most enjoyable read of the month. I have read 5 things, 4 of them I've read physically. One was an audio, as you see from the stats. So without further ado, let's get into the actual wrap-up. Okay, so at number 5, I will have to put The Forest Grimm. This is by Catherine Purdy. She wrote another duology that I'd read previously, Bone Criers duology, something like that. So I did reverse the dust jacket of my favorite edition just because I wanted this cover. So this is not the actual, you know, cover. Look at the spray pages. I've done an unboxing for these. It just looks stunning, and yeah, it's a stunning book. But the premise of this YA fantasy is that you follow our main protagonist, and she actually lives in this world where there is a forest grimm. So the forest grimm is providing people initially with and the food and resources, so they are grateful to this forest for what they provide to them. And then this forest has also provided them with a magic book, and when they turn 16 they can have one wish. They can tell this book, and that wish is granted to them on the condition that no one ever reveals what the wish is to other people. And then one day someone uses this book for dark purposes. They do kill somebody, and the book and the forest then turns against the people in the village. And now the forest has become a death trap where people get in and they don't get out since this murder occurred. Our main protagonist, her mother, is one of those people that entered the forest and never came out, and she has been trying to get in the forest and look for her mother now for many years, but the forest ejects them, everybody who tries to enter, until one day she manages to find a way to just get in, and she is followed in this adventure by a dear friend of hers whose fiancé has entered the woods as well and never returned. So she goes to find her mother, he goes to find his fiancé, and they team up and go inside. Now, of these, I appreciate a lot of the premise. I thought the premise and how it plays with the Grimm stories, you know, the dark tales from which, you know, when Disney tales are taken and made into more childish format. So I really enjoyed what she does with that, and I could get on board with the characters. And I also found the pacing moving fast, engaging. The issue I have with this author, and it's the same issue I had with the 2nd book in her other duology, it's the way she jumps from one plot point to the other. I think she does not connect plot points well. It's so messy that eventually I become tired of reading it. It's unbelievable and it's just not well done. I don't know how to describe in any other words, just to say when you go from one thing happening to the other, the justification there or why, you know, the plot is moving forward has to make sense. And somehow with her I found myself going from one plot point which is resolved in a way that doesn't make sense for the next one to come up. I don't know, it's just the passage of one scene to the other I found awkward and not well fitting. I don't know if I'm gonna ever read the sequel, because again, I do generally enjoy these characters and the premise. It's just a YA, it's not mind-blowing or anything. Her writing is definitely not mind-blowing, but it was entertaining, and I think the idea of twisting the stories, the grim stories like these, was peculiar and unique. I just wish somehow that they, maybe it's in, you know, in this post-production phase where she's reviewing this story, some things just don't mesh well together. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. Let me know what is your experience with her, if you read any books by her. I might just blabbering, or it makes sense what I'm trying to say. But yeah, overall, I gave it 3 stars. I believe it wasn't horrible at all. I did, though, because again, the struggles I had with her writing and the way this book was structured, eventually I did find myself in the latter part be less interested in the whole story. Okay, sorry, I had to pause to eat lunch, so I ate spinach. I hope they were not in my teeth. Then I've got Last to Leave the Room. This was my first ever night from Illumicrate box. Again, it's all in the same unboxing, those books that you're gonna see today, so I'm just gonna link it down below. And this is a horror, sci-fi horror, and the premise is that you got this high achieving woman that works for this tech company, and they are dealing with this odd situation in which the city, it's a city in California, it's slowly sinking, but very, very slowly. So they're trying to understand what's going on there. And in the basement of this woman, a door appears while she's investigating what's happening to the general city, to the whole city. And from this door, one day, something comes out and it looks exactly like her. And I'm just gonna leave a premise of these. She wrote another popular sci-fi horror, The Luminous Dead, which I've not read, but I might try after this one. I think overall this was a good experience. I'm new to sci-fi horror, and the few I had tried before had left much to be wanted. So this one, it was not necessarily a redeeming one, but it was one that I found actually okay, and I didn't have any trouble reading. And so yeah, I was overall 3.5, I believe 3.75. It's on the side, probably I'm gonna put it on the other side. But yeah, what I did enjoy is the characters. They were horrible. Like, none of these characters are likable, but they're not meant to be. Like, we know from the start that our main protagonist, she is insufferable. The character of Lachlan Lotion, I don't know how you pronounce it, and her character was so fascinating, and the dynamics between the two. The world building was zero. The horror scary element was zero. However, it was mostly the psychological side of things, and when I stopped and thought, if this was to happen, it would be utterly terrifying. So although there are no jump scares necessarily, there is not much violence overall at all, toward the end a bit, but not very much. It's not violent or graphic or anything of the sort for the most part. It's the premise, it's the psychological side of things and how twisted that was, and also that kept me captivated by the story because I wanted to understand what was going on. The ending is not perfect, it's slightly rushed, it happens very quickly, but it does wrap up things, so it doesn't feel like unanswered or whether it was the case. Writing was just okay. I didn't mind it, didn't particularly find it remarkable. I think I would have loved for the character of Lotion, weather, to be explored a bit more, but it kept me entertained, and I thought it was scientific but understandable for me, like the way she explained things. So I will try more by the author and see. I don't know, to be fair though, these graphics, these designs have nothing to do with the book. Like, it does remind me of like, oh, you know, it's like this portal to hell or something like that. No, that's not the case. It's not a fantasy side of things. So I just found the design, I know it's the cat, but I find it that it gives you an idea of something that this book is not. It's just a scientific horror. It's more a psychological scientific horror, which, if it makes sense, it was definitely a new thing for me. Never read something of the sort. Then I will have to put The Kingdom of the Curse. This is the second book in a trilogy by the author. And in the first one, you got these two sisters, twins. One of them gets killed by a demon, and the other sister, Emilia, she wants to find out what demon killed her and why. And so she has to team up with a demon of her own to do so. And yeah, the story starts from there. In this one, the first book ended up on a cliffhanger, so this just picks up right after the events of book number 1. And for the premise of this ad, it should have been way more exciting than it was. I'm just gonna say it. I think basically nothing happens in this book. Like, I can't, plot-wise, it's kind of a chunker. It's around like almost 500 pages. Not much happens. Yet, I did find this book particularly juicy at points. And with juicy, I mean the wrath is juicy. And I don't get fictional crushes very often anymore, but definitely wrath holds a spot in my heart. And the fact that the only time I do get fictional crushes are for devils, I don't know what it says about me. But anyway, jokes aside, not much happens. I enjoyed wrath. Yet Emilia is quite annoying in this one. I truly loved her in the first book. It was one of the reasons why together her and Wrath worked so well and kept me so engaged throughout. But here I found her at times, again, she would just get on my nerves a bit. I also found that at times, like, things are presented to us as high stakes, so I would expect a higher payoff, but then when things happen, they are quite lackluster. So, you know, it's just, there's a epic party that it's, you know, it's the build up of the whole book is about this epic party, and then the party happens and just not much comes out of it. So yeah, it was just a bit, yeah, and then nothing happens. And also the end, the revelation we get at the end, not a big fan. First of all, so it coming miles away. Second of all, it's just a trope that I do not like, and I've heard bad things about the third book. I'm gonna still plan to read it because I want to finish it. Maybe I will have like an unpopular opinion like in the third and last book. I do want to see more of Wrath. That's a big reason why I'm gonna, you know, finish this trilogy. But yeah, the ending is just like, yeah, okay, so they're coming. It's a bit cliche, so I really hope that at least she can make out something innovative from that trope. The ending, basically, the trope in the end. I hope she can make it something cool out of it, but my hopes are realistic. I just realized that probably the camera angle is quite like, my camera is a bit like, anyway, let's just go with it today, okay? I am trying to do like a million things. Anyway, number 2, I have All That Remains. And it's basically the author explaining her job, what she do, what it entails, and the importance of her job. She's a forensic anthropologist, so she's an anthropologist that focuses basically on supporting, you know, the law of the state, or whether it's the case to solve crimes or find answers on how and why some people died, or finding bodies and stuff like that. As someone who's very interested in anything that's to do with forensic side of things and true crime, this for me was just interesting because I knew very little about anthropology in this environment, in this setting. I listened to this on audio, and I don't know if she reads this. She might read it out loud herself. Anyway, I had overall a very good experience. I think the rating of this book is quite low because the first one third of the book, she goes into her personal life, and especially she focuses a lot on her parents and the passing of her parents, which I do understand the reason why she's using the passing of her parents to also explain points about life and death and the biology behind it. But I do believe that rating wise she would have got a better rating without that part, because it was a bit slow, that part, and less interesting. But I promise you that if you stick past that part, the initial part, which is more about her private life, then it's when it gets very interesting. That's when she explains a lot of cool things about the job, and a lot of things about the whole anthropology work, and the successes that they had, the struggles they're still facing, what it's used for. And also she was very likable. She explains a lot of her own personal experiences. For example, she was sent to Kosovo after the war to help retrieving the bodies, and that part really touched me. I think you can see from her voice and the way she speaks about that how it changed her own life. And also I think this is the first book that really goes into what happened there. Not in extensive details, but she gives you a good overview and why she was there and what happened in that particular area of Kosovo where she goes to retrieve the bodies, which is absolutely atrocious. And I do believe that personally, at least in Europe, where I come from, Italy, but even in England, I've been living here for a few years now, we know very little of that war. We know very little of atrocities that happened there. And it's not that long ago. It's actually a pretty recent war. And it's just awful that a lot of people don't know what happened there. That's a part of history that's not talked. So she really made me feel humbled, but also grateful about life. Like the books like these that do explore war zones and, you know, the leftovers of a war. It makes me feel so grateful for what I have. So I really appreciated that side of things. I generally learn so many cool things by listening to these. So if you're into non-fiction, go past the personal part. There are so many cool notions to learn, so many cool things to learn about forensic anthropology and biology in general that I am actually grateful. And I do plan to eventually buy a copy and keep these because, again, I want to explore it again. And I think I can learn so much more upon rereading these. Definitely recommended. Forensic anthropology is actually pretty cool. And it's a pity that, unfortunately, the thing that, you know, all of the modern technology, this science is becoming more obsolete, but it's so much needed in things that, you know, a computer can't do as of now. So I also hope that, you know, I believe that with this book she wanted to say we are useful and this is why we are so useful, and so many people, you know, should actually donate their body to science. You know, there are such like positive things that come from death, and the way she viewed death as natural part of life, that was also very refreshing and inspiring. And number one, it's a book that I am gonna promise and just say I understand why this is not for everyone, because this is an epic fantasy that feels very low stakes, and it is a romantic fantasy. That is where the plot is, that is where, you know, the focus is. And I'm talking about the Hurricane Wars by Thea Guazon, I don't know. This is a fairy loot. It's the unboxing is in that video. I am in love how stunning this copy was. And you know what? I really love this book. I didn't know a romantic fantasy was what I needed this month. I've been in the mood for fantasy in general, and I think this kind of romantic fantasy really struck a chord within me. It was refreshing for how tastefully it was done. Now, if you go on the plot wise, so if you look at just the epic fantasy side of things, the world building, the action, it's mild, it's there, but it's mild. I hope that this is actually a book that takes its time, as it has done in the first book. I do wish that she keeps taking the pace as she has been using in this book and doesn't rush things through. I think what works so well is this is a true enemy to steal enemy with feelings by the end. And I did truly appreciate how this relationship is made of small moments, of snippets of dialogue that can be harsh and violent toward each other verbally, and then they say something that connects them. I loved how this romance is done, is made up of small touches, it's hinted at times, and how it's not just, you know, focusing on boobs and genitalia, like it's nothing to do with it. It could have been like a small touch on the knee or something of the sort. And the way she created that tension there, I definitely felt it. It felt more real, it felt more genuine than a lot of romantic fantasy I had read. Initially, I struggled with this a bit because I think the way she describes him is like Kylo Ren, how is it called, from Star Wars, which personally not my type. And so I kept just thinking about him, and also like he's old, he can't be 17 years old. So I had this feeling that she was writing a kind of fan fiction of what's called the Grisha trilogy, because of the idea of the light and the darkness, and then she was for making him, rather than the Darkling, into the actor that plays Kylo Ren. I was just like, it's not working for me. When I finally left that behind, I could truly appreciate all this. Her writing is great. Her writing is great. Listen, if it's a debut, and I think it is, this woman has such a potential. It's such a beautiful writing story. And I also felt like for once, the point of view of a male did not feel as feminine as other point of views I've seen done before. It was still not potentially like reading actually from a male perspective, but it felt rather distinguishable compared to her. Sorry, I didn't give you the premise of this, did I? The premise of this is an epic fantasy where you got this kingdom that's trying basically to conquer other kingdoms, and they do it by using shadow magic. And our main male protagonist, he is the heir of the emperor that is doing this conquering at the beginning of the story. And her, our main protagonist, she is a sun wather, I believe, so she has actually power that comes from sunlight, so natural light, and she's just someone who works for the army of the country that's trying to defend themselves from the invaders. And they meet on this remote part while on a battle. They meet and their magic crashes, and instead of kind of winning one side or the other, their magic somehow blends, and the story starts from there. I don't want to spoil anything else. It is very much like, it feels like, you know, a Darkling and Alina retelling like the Grisha trilogy. There is that premise there, and that's fine. She took something that it's quite popular nowadays and she made into her own thing, and her own thing for me worked brilliantly. But if you're not into romantic fantasy and you expect a high stakes, it's not gonna work out for you. And yeah, and this attraction, as I said, made of small moments, really worked for me. It made it believable, and I really honestly could see their conflict. The idea of, you know, having to deal with your enemy, and that comes with all the preconception you have, and with all the issue you have, and all your family's behind, and, you know, the goals that you want for your people, what's best for the people, what you want personally. All of that conflict was developed, displayed, and shown to us very clearly, and in my opinion, very well. Impressed, 100% continue on with these, without doubts. I was really in the mood for something so sweet and tense at the same time, because clearly there is tension here and you can feel it. And these characters together, this is what I love about some books, where I don't, you know, it's not like, I don't know, Kingdom of the Curse, where I've got a crush on Wrath. Here, I don't have a crush on Alaric. I generally want these people to be real and to get together. I just generally ship them together and root for them. And that's another form of attachment that you can create with a, you know, a romantic book. But yeah, love the writing. Impressed. We'll continue on. Thank you guys. That's all I've read in the month of November. Well, I'm 3/4 in some of the other books. Unfortunately, didn't manage to finish them in time. Let me know what was your favorite read of the month. If you're new, I would love for you to subscribe and comment down below. Let's chat. Let's get to know each other, taste in books, and give each other recommendations and stuff like that. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.